Hey, okay, so yesterday I made a video, I almost said a quick video, it was 15 minutes, and I try to keep them that long or less because I'm a talker and I know we all have things to do, but it was about the passage in Mark chapter 12, starting in verse 13, when the Pharisees asked Jesus, is it okay to pay taxes to Caesar? And Jesus replies with a question, whose image and inscription is this? So they say Caesar's. Jesus says, give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and give to God the things that are God's. Okay, typically that verse, that passage, I've heard preached as a call to give more into the offering plate. And here's why I know that I always say that I love taking verses and passages that are taught incorrectly as I learn the correct context and everything and giving them to you, but it's not just for the sake of, haha, you were doing it wrong. It's because there's actually so much hope to be found in these passages, just like the Jeremiah verse. I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. If we just quote that at graduations and ceremonies as going forward, that God has these great plans, he's gonna make you do great things, and we ignore the entire fact that that verse was written in a letter from a prophet to a group of people who are exiled, that God is saying, not right now, but I know the plans. I'm working the good things and the bad things that are happening in your life. I'm going to bless you by blessing the people who have enslaved you. I haven't forgotten you. And then when we look at the New Testament, that tells us that as Christians, we're living as an exiled people. That verse is even more for us. So when we teach it incorrectly, trying to sometimes soften it, trying to make it relevant to the individual, it takes away the depth of the meaning. Now, when we teach a verse like a passage like Mark 12, God and Caesar and taxing and money, when we take the actual meaning of it, which is found in Jesus' question, whose name or whose inscription and image does it bear? When we take away the fact that he's saying, well, this earthly money is Caesar's, go get it, so give it to him. And then give God even more because all of it actually comes from God. So really it's his, so give it back to him. Get it. When we teach it as give it to Caesar, but remember that it all really comes from God, so give even more to God, we're cheapening it. Because Jesus, let me tell you something, when it comes to people who are outside the church, why they don't want to come into the church, it's never because of Jesus. And I know that he says that the world will hate him, the world as a whole, but individuals are never going to say, I don't like that Jesus guy. Most people who aren't Christians will say, yeah, I think he was a great man. Historically, if he lived, he was a great guy. If Christians acted like Jesus, it would be different. I'm going to tell you, one, it's going to be hypocrites, which we're not even, that's a cop-out because doctors are hypocrites, parents are hypocrites, teachers are hypocrites, humans are hypocrites. So there's hypocrites everywhere. And two, it's going to be money because you feel like the church is always asking for money, 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 money. And that's a touchy subject for everyone. I mean, it's what, the number one cause of divorce. It's huge. It's the root of all evil. And so when we take a passage like Mark 12, which holds so much hope and so much truth in the fact that with Jesus, it's never about money. Listen to my words. With Jesus, it is never, ever, ever, never, never, ever, never about money. Ever. And when we make it that, it cheapens it so much that we're missing a huge opportunity to share the gospel with people and with our own hearts when we are taught it that way. So the point of going into passages like these and saying, actually, this is what it says, the amount of hope that really is found in these words are huge. So let's revisit yesterday's video. That's the total summary, right? They ask him, it says at the beginning, they were looking for a way to arrest him, but feared the crowd because they knew he had spoken this parable against them. So they left him and went away. Then they sent some of the Pharisees and the Herodians to Jesus to try to trap him in his words. So they're being, like I said yesterday, little sneaky snakes. They're trying to trip him up because they're politicking. And so he's preaching against them. He's doing it in parables. They're figuring out what he's saying, probably realizing that he's not totally wrong and it's really ticking them off, but they're politicking. So they can't harm him because the people love him. And Jewish law, etc., etc. So instead, they're trying to trip him up to give them grounds, either to turn the people on him or give them grounds on which to arrest him. So he starts with, why are you testing me? Bring me a denarius. So he does not even play around. He goes right in. Like I said yesterday, we love it when Jesus gets kind of snarky and passive aggressive, but they started it, right? And so he doesn't play this game with people who are supposed to be the leaders you're silly, of God's people and bringing them closer to God. Instead, they are worried all about money. And so that's where this comes from their heart. They're going, all right, so is it legal or is it right for us to give to Caesar? And right, so they're talking about money. So worth noting, one, his reply, it says at the very end of verse 17, no one can hear when you're yelling. And they were utterly amazed at him because his answer is so perfect and it's so out of the world's economy that it's like it wasn't even on their radar. Like they saw 1, 2, maybe a 3-way answer that he could have given, and he came in with like number 4,077,000,000 with the most perfect answer, which says, this has Caesar's face and name on it. This is what he wants from you, this money. And how true is that today? If you pay your taxes, the IRS doesn't even know that most of us little peons exist, but don't pay them 1 year. Guess what? They know where you live all of a sudden. They're going to pay you a little visit. So he's saying, this is what the world wants from you. This is what it requires, and give it to them. Let me tell you what God wants from you. Let me tell you what God requires. You, your life, your heart, and the thing is, he's asking for way more than money. It would be really nice and easy. If you are a Christian, you know that it's not a super easy life to live. It's not how it's always presented. I mean, we are choosing to follow the God and trust the God and become sons and daughters of the God whose biggest example of love, whose biggest expression of his love to us was killing his only son, allowing him to be tortured and killed. And so we're trying to become sons and daughters too. Health, wealth, and prosperity doesn't really line up there. We're choosing to trust someone who is so good that it's worth the risk of whatever may come, right? Okay, so that's what Jesus is asking for here. He's saying, you know what? Do what you got to do with your earthly money. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is your whole life. So just a few passages later, the end of chapter 12, here in Mark, he flips over to the widow's mite, the widow's gift. Sitting across from the temple treasury, he watched how the crowd dropped money into the treasury. Many rich people were putting in large sums. Then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 tiny coins worth very little. Summoning his disciples, he said to them, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all of the others. For they gave out of their surplus, but she out of her poverty has put in everything she had, all she had to live on." Okay, those two passages, are in the same chapter for a reason. It is never, ever about money. All of these people, these rich people are putting in, I'm just throwing numbers. This isn't hundreds of thousands of dollars, say, right? They're funding entire church campuses to be planted. And this lady comes in and drops in 2 pennies and he says, be like her. Do what she's doing, because it's always, always, always about the heart. And so what they're trying to do is get him into a money trap, because again, root of all evil, money's messy. If you're going to try to trip somebody up, if you really want to root someone out of something, money's the way to do it, because you can get all kinds of feathers ruffled. And he says, I don't care about your money. What about your heart? What about your life? Are you willing to greater love? So love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love others as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than he who lays down his life for his friends. Are you prepared to do that? Because while you may drop a big check in there, while you may not get to, go out to eat 3 days this week because you gave out of your surplus right into the church offering, good for you. How's your heart? You willing to lay down your life for your friends? Are you willing to serve until it hurts? Are you willing to, and I don't mean hurts like to the point of burnout and physical exhaustion, because I think we do a crappy job in the evangelical church of telling people what that actually means. When I say serve until it hurts, I mean pushing you outside of what your fleshly boundaries are. What is it that you try to hold on? What do you idolize? What do you hold on to yourself? Where do you say, no, I'll never do that. I can't forgive that. Because that's where you need to go, and that's what you need to offer, right? That's what you need to look at. And now money will fall into this. Money will fall in line when you're in a body of believers, when your motivation is furthering the kingdom, when your full motivation in all areas of life. And that's what Jesus is saying. I want it all. I don't want you that, I've heard it said, if you want to know where your heart is, or if you want to know, who you really love, just go look at your check registry. That is so oversimplified and bullcrap, because here's the thing. You can write a check to the church. You can give and give and give. You can be a freaking bajillionaire and give half of it and be able to show your check registry is every Sunday, and then some, and still have a dirty, dirty heart. And then you can be a single mom busting your tail and literally not have anything but the couple dollars cash that you have left over from breakfast to drop into the plate and be giving Jesus your all. But your checkbook shows bills and gas and groceries and food and daycare. That's the most oversimplified, guilt-ridden thing I've ever heard. It doesn't work that way. So what Jesus is saying, in every area, in the places that you don't want to give, and that's what I'm saying as far as not burnout. You give until it hurts. You were in the pantry. Sure, you can have this. You give, you lay down your life for your friends. I don't care how much money you give me. I want your life. And what that tells you is his priority. On this earth, money's everything. That's why it's so messy, right? It's our currency. I get it. It's the easiest thing to idolize. That's why Jesus says it's hard for a rich man to enter heaven. It's the easiest thing to idolize. It's the easiest thing to find security in. Identity in, right? We have tax brackets. We all like to know where we stand. We all like to show other people where we stand. We have a certain group of friends that kind of stand where we stand. Jesus is saying that's not what's important to me. You don't have to have that status. You don't have to be a member of that club. What I care about is not your money. It's not your stuff. It's not what you can give monetarily. It's you. I care about you. You bear my image. I've inscribed my words and my laws onto your heart. And what does Jesus say? All of the laws and the prophets are summed up in this. Love your neighbor as yourself, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. It's not complicated. His burden is not heavy. His yoke is light, right? It's the Pharisees and unfortunately sometimes the evangelical church even. That is my mother, that is where we all come from. That can get it twisted. His yoke is easy and his burden is light. He wants you as you are, not cleaned up first. He does the cleaning up. And it's not even really a cleaning up. It's a repurposing, right? I mean, obviously. So that is why I started with yesterday and gave you all that kind of boring background information a little bit, because the point of it all is it's never about money with Jesus. It's never about what you materially have to give him. It's never about working to the point that you are physically ill and tired and don't even have time to sit down at home with this. It is your heart, your mind, abide in him, rest in him, love your neighbor as yourself. Give out of what you have to give. Give everything in your heart, in your life. It's not ever, ever, ever about the size of the offering. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. It's always about the heart. And so that is why I was so excited to talk about this Mark 12 passage, because when we preach it that way, I know churches need to keep the lights on, and it seems like a great way to remind people and really drive that point home. We're cheapening it. And we're not sharing the good news that we're claiming to want that money in order to share, right? So we're taking away from the gospel itself in the name of raising money to spread the gospel. And I hate that. I hate it. So, Mark 12.